Welcome in, everybody. I'm Bobby Burton. This is On Texas Football, joined by CJ Vogel, who's live at DKR. Steve Sarkisian just had his weekly press conference with the media on Monday morning at 11:30. CJ was there. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but let's get to it. CJ, first off, a couple of awards given out to the Longhorns for their performances on Saturday. Both the SEC offense and defensive player of the week are Longhorns. Let us know who it was.
We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Running back Trey Wisner was the offensive player of the week for the SEC after running for 186 yards on 33 attempts. Bobby, he truly was the bell cow workhorse, whatever you want to call him. That's what he was on Saturday. A career high in yards once again. 2 straight weeks in which he set a career high for the Texas running game, which has really found its identity over the last few weeks, over the last month or so. On the defensive side of the ball, and for the 5th time this year, for the 4th different player, a Longhorn has been named the co-defensive player of the week by the SEC. This time, defensive lineman Vernon Broughton, who picked up a pair of sacks as well as the game-sealing fumble recovery of Marcel Reed. So the accolades keep rolling in, Bobby, and of course, Texas will be able to play on one more big stage for the SEC this weekend against Georgia in Atlanta for the SEC championship game.
Sark also talked about injuries. Obviously, Kelvin Banks, the one everybody was wondering about. Sark, and this is a quote, he says, "No firm update other than Kelvin is similar to Quinn a week ago." He did say, but I will say Kelvin is off to a good start this week. That was a very good note. I thought that everybody needs to know Kelvin Banks' injury seems to be progressing at least. I mean, Quinn Ewers gave it a full go on Saturday. If he categorizes him similarly, you would think that Kelvin Banks might be available for this SEC championship game on Saturday. Similarly, Quinn Ewers still dealing with his ankle injury, but was practicing today full go as well, according to Sark. So good news on that front. A lot of the focus on Saturday, on today's press conference, CJ, actually focused on the Georgia Bulldogs, not surprising. And Sark was asked a variety of questions. Now, let's start with what he thought overall and how his team has changed, or what questions were answered by this team after their loss against Georgia. He said, "I thought we had good leadership after Georgia, but," he said, "now I know we have good leadership. It was how they bounced back. You're only as good as your last win or whatever, but the idea in the fact that he thinks this team is player-led and they showed resiliency was huge to the head football coach at Texas."
Yeah, the word resiliency was used 4 or 5 times in that little snippet there, Bobby, by Coach Sarkisian. And I think that it speaks to just the level of veteran-led, locker room right now by this Texas football team. When you look at it, the names in which have been through it all, whether it be from last year having to win out to make and win the Big 12 championship to this year to win out after the Georgia game to make it to Atlanta. It's Vernon Broughton, it's Alfred Collins. I mean, it's Jahdae Barron, it's Michael Taft, who we'll talk about here in a bit later. But all of these guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where there's been veteran leadership through and through this Texas football program, they stepped up after that Georgia game when their back was against the wall, when they knew they needed to go 4-0 to seal the deal at the end of the football season to make it to Atlanta. They did just that, and Sarkisian said he's been ever pleased with the leadership and resiliency by his football team. And that was on display going on the road once again this past weekend. They did it in Fayetteville where they pitched the first half shutout. They did it again in College Station this past Saturday when they pitched a full game shutout and ultimately achieved the regular season goal, but now it's on to the postseason.
Sark gave Kirby Smart what I thought was the ultimate pat on the back, or compliment would be even a better term, I think. He said he shared with his own team today that he told his team, look, Georgia has the heart of a champion. That's what you saw in 8 overtime win for Georgia against Georgia Tech. That was the heart of a champion, down 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. They came back and did. That's the ultimate compliment a coach can give another coach, to say that about his team. That being said, he goes, look, we need to give them our best effort. We didn't do that the first time around. 7 pre-snap penalties, number of drops and different pieces of the puzzle, missed assignments. Just a litany of lists that he gave went on. But he said, look, Georgia deserves our best. Last time around, we did not give our best.
That's exactly it. He said, Georgia deserves the best. Texas fans deserve the best. Fans of college football in the SEC who are going to tune in to watch this game, they deserve the best version of the Texas Longhorns. And Texas, quite frankly, just didn't have that. In October, when Georgia came down to DKR for that first meeting, amongst that list of, miscues, 4 turnovers, 1 of 4 on 4th down. Texas did not play their best football game. Since then, however, there's been quite a turn in what we've seen from the physicality of the offensive line. The running game has looked the best it's looked the entire season. The defense has only improved, Bobby. And, of course, you start piecing things together. One thing I really liked from Sarkisian that he pointed out in this press conference was the complementary aspect of the last 9 turnovers created by the Texas defense. 6 of them resulted in touchdowns. 3 of them ended up ending the football games for opponents, and that just means Texas ran out the rest of the clock or knelt out the football to seal the deal.
So the last 9 turnovers that Texas actually caused, not that they gave away, but caused. That's a great point, CJ. Great point. Hey, also, he said that Texas struggled in 3 specific areas against Georgia beyond the penalties they need to clean up, beyond the missed assignments. He said they struggled with identifying the blitz. He said they need to block better one-on-one. They were just losing one-on-one assignments. Okay, that happens when you got better players. You're playing against as good a defensive front you are, and then struggled getting open versus man coverage, in his opinion. Those are the 3 things that he said, look, we struggled with that against Georgia, and we hadn't struggled against that against anyone else. Look for those 3 things, guys, to be part of it. Another thing that he said, CJ, he was asked, will we see Arch Manning? What was his response to that?
We'll see. Essentially, Sarkisian not letting the cat out of the bag, but of course, he did say that Texas will showcase some things offensively that they haven't seen or any other team has seen the entire season. Of course, there was bits and pieces of that with what we would call maybe the Arch package at quarterback, the 3 snaps in which all 3 resulted in Arch Manning rush attempt, but also the tackle over. And we haven't seen that at all this season in terms of Trevor Goosby moving to the right side of the offensive line to be essentially an extra right tackle over there. You had Gunnar Helm being essentially what was the left tackle position. That, of course, was the first look we got to see with the Arch Manning 15-yard touchdown run early in that football game on Saturday. But Sarkisian, to his point, Texas will have something in store that Georgia has not seen and that they've been preparing for all season long to unveil on the biggest stage. We'll see what that wrinkle might be, but we already saw a glimpse of what it could be this past Saturday against Texas A&M.
I look at it, and he said, he like you said, we expect, and this is the quote, new wrinkles. Sark said, he was asked, have you thrown everything out there yet? Right now, has everybody seen all of your offense? And he goes, no, we still have new wrinkles we can go to. There's always something else we can do. That's what he's working on this week and for beyond right now. All right. The Georgia game is going to clearly be something big. He also said, what else has it changed since the Georgia game? He mentioned the leadership piece. Really, he thought he had good leadership, but now he really does have it. Then he also mentioned the practice habits of the defense went up precipitously post Georgia. It's like they got popped in the face a little bit and then went back to work. That is something they're going to like. He mentioned the consistency and the physicality they've been practicing with as well. All right, a couple other pieces here. Let's start with Quinn Ewers. Sark talked a little bit about the Texas quarterback and what he's been able to do. CJ, I thought it was tremendous. He called one of the strengths of Quinn Ewers, he said, was his steadiness. He said, even in the midst of throwing the interception, then fumbling again, he came back in the huddle and was steady. had good huddle presence, all that stuff. Talk a little bit about what he said further on Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, it's kind of been the constant theme that we've seen with Quinn Ewers, right? Since he's got on campus, it's been that cool, calm, collective approach, which I think sometimes Texas fans might want to see a little bit more out of Quinn. But at the same time, in a situation like that, on the road, coming off of 2 drives where you go the length and you don't result in any points, to come back out and say, okay, clear sheet, let's go back out there, drive the rock, take off some time. Quinn Ewers does just that. And I look back at what Trey Wisner says each time that we've talked to him over the last 3 weeks, Bobby. He says, every time I'm in the huddle, every time that I take the field, Quinn looks at me and tells me I'm a dog. And it's just that confidence in the guys in front of him, next to him, and the play caller on the sideline that Quinn has that allows Texas to overcome what has been a bit of some rocky moments in games earlier this season. So to go on the road, which Sarkisian has said, it's going to be a road game. We are going to be the road dog essentially in this game going to Atlanta. It's going to be important for this team to come together once again, and for Quinn Ewers to have that cool, calm, collective approach to this. Couldn't be a better situation for him there. One other thing I wanted to mention, because I actually really I got a chuckle out of it hearing it from Sarkisian. I was out there when the Texas buses unloaded the players into Kyle Field, and I'm sitting there wondering, wow, they really lined up as they would for Texas. Bevo Boulevard, you have the big walkthrough for all the players. They got the bands, the cheerleaders, whatnot. For the Texas buses, they went through the same path. And so all the maroon, everybody is standing out there parading on either side of the street, waiting for the Texas buses to come through, which probably should have been an intimidation factor, of course. But Sarkisian said it worked as the opposite. It was a motivational aspect that the Texas buses kind of watched as they rolled through. They came together in the buses. They got off the bus and into the locker room, and they came together immediately to say, this is the moment that we've been waiting for. Let's get after it, and let's go win a football game. So that was the leadership aspect coming together on the road against Texas A&M that I don't think many people would have had an understanding about until Sarkisian clarified it earlier today.
All right. Steve Sarkisian also asked if Michael Taft is an NFL prospect. He also talked a little bit about recruiting. We'll get to that next, CJ. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. That is Flat Creek Estate Winery. It's just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local Specs, so give it a try. Of course, Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Thanks to Neil, Eva, as well as Sean and all those folks out at Flat Creek for sponsoring On Texas Football this year. We appreciate you guys, and it is as pretty a venue as it looks on those videos. It's not one of those that's a gotcha situation. All right, guys, a couple more things. Sark asked if Michael Taft's an NFL prospect. CJ, your thoughts?
Sarkisian said absolutely, and I'm tending to believe the same thing as well. Of course, every time that he's been on the field, Bobby, it's been positive impact plays that changed the game. It was no different on Saturday with that interception in the first quarter there, but it goes beyond just the on-field play for Michael Taft. Sarkisian singled that out as well. He goes back to when he was just a walk-on, his first time, his first summer in the player-led practices for Taft's first summer here in Austin. He said, look, every senior player, every player that I was expecting to be a big part of this team came to me during that summer and said, yo, you got to take a look at this Taft kid, because all he does is make PBUs, interceptions, big-time plays. I love the quote that Sarkisian gave about Michael Taft as well. From day one, he stepped foot on campus, he's led. He's been a leader for this football team, and I don't think there's been any drop-off at all from what we've seen day one to today with the way that Michael Taft has impacted this team positively, and Sarkisian certainly making the case for him to continue his football career into the NFL, whether it be after this season, after next season, whenever that ends up, there is a future in football for Michael Taft.
One of the things I loved that Sark went into, and this is something that when it comes to recruiting rankings and all that stuff, Sark said, look, I struggle with the word overachieve. Michael Taft, in true honesty, most people would call him an overachiever, right? I mean, he's maximized his talent, okay? But Sark said he struggles with it because all he's doing is he's maximizing what he's got. And so you never underestimate those people. Said he led, you mentioned the leading part. He never took a backseat to anyone, etc. Sark also used it as an opportunity to lament the loss of the walk-on in college football. Said, look, you know, he was a walk-on here. What kind of story? We wouldn't have the Michael Taft story if we lose walk-ons in college football. We'll see exactly where that ends up in April when the House settlement finalizes. But good stuff there, and really positive, I thought, from Steve Sarkisian overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a great. If you get a chance to listen to the full thing, please take a chance, take a second to do that. All right. Sark was also asked about this, CJ. We mentioned it in Coffee and Football. We talked about it a little bit last night. Texas now enters signing day, which is this coming Wednesday, and the portal. Well, Texas has a game this week. Most of college football does not have a game this week. So Sark was asked, does that put you at a disadvantage? I love this quote. He said, it's like you're crying from a yacht. You have champagne problems. He goes, basically, wouldn't you rather be playing? Yes, it may put you at some disadvantage here or there, but it's champagne problems that you want to have. You'd rather be playing and being able to tell recruits, hey, come to Texas. You're going to play in the college football playoff. You're going to play in conference championship games, as opposed to the opposite of trying to sell the dream of one day you might play in it. And I thought he did a good job. Explain further what he said about how Texas sees the portal vis-a-vis high school recruiting and the importance of both of those, CJ.
Yeah, of course. He looks at portal as a way to supplement his team, not necessarily to go out there and completely revamp his football team. Of course, Texas has done a tremendous job of adding pieces, but not overhauling their football team. And Sarkisian again went out to say, I really like the young talent on our roster that will be back. Of course, he mentioned Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, some of the guys defensively that are going to be back. Manny Muhammad's another, Derek Williams. But of course, the incoming class. He says, look, we got a really talented group of young cats coming in for their freshman year, whether it be at the turn of the semester or whether it be in the summer. I like what we have, and I'm going to recruit them for a reason. And to your point, Bobby, for Texas to go out there and to juggle not just the SEC championship game, but the eventual college football playoff, all with the portal and signing day, Sarkisian says it's basically just about time management. So to get off the practice field here early this morning to come up to his press conference, I guarantee you he's walking into Moncrief right now and hopping on the phone with some of the cats committed in his 2025 class just to see and kind of re-up that relationship again, because that quote that you mentioned, you come to Texas expecting to play for championships. Well, look at where they're headed this weekend. That's going to be the message for Sarkisian as he looks to close out this signing day period Wednesday through Friday.
CJ, anything else you want to add? I had a couple things that I wanted to sum up for everybody that's just joined us here in the last 5 to 10 minutes, but anything you want to add before we let folks go?
Yeah, I'll go through the injuries once more. Quinn Ewers, Kelvin Banks, they were out on the practice field today. It'll be Sarkisian said it was a good start to the week for Kelvin Banks. Of course, he should be on the same kind of trajectory as we saw Quinn Ewers a week ago, practicing, ramping up what he can do. We'll see what the ankle looks like later in the week, of course, but a positive sign and start to the week for Kelvin Banks. Quinn Ewers was on the football field today. If there's any indication that he's going to miss this game Saturday, I have not heard it. I would expect him on the field Saturday as well. No mention of Jaden Blue, of course, who was dinged up a little bit with the shoulder coming off the field late in that game against Texas A&M. He will be someone to monitor as the week progresses as well. But all in all, Bobby, Sarkisian sounded very content with the way that this Texas football team has kind of evolved into over the last 4 or 5 weeks since that Georgia football game, and will be looking to give Georgia a bit of a different look, a better look than what happened here in Austin just over a month and a half ago.
Consistency of physicality is what he says that he's really liked the last 5 weeks from Texas. And, you know, Mike Elko might agree with that because his team got whipped on Saturday up front on both sides of the ball, legitimately. All right, last thing before we go, I want to reiterate one thing that he said because it goes, CJ, to the overall idea of this. and what Texas is looking forward to this weekend. And that's the quote, Georgia deserves our best shot. Nothing more needs to be said. If you're the head coach at Texas and your players at Texas, Georgia deserves our best shot. They didn't get our best shot last time. Let's see what happens. All right, CJ, thank you. I know you got more work to do there at the stadium. Players are still being interviewed. You're at DKR right now. Thank you, CJ Vogel, for On Texas Football. Thank you also to our sponsor, Flat Creek Estate Winery. And thanks to all of you for stopping in and listening. We'll have more from CJ later today on The Winning Drive. That'll start around 3:15 this afternoon. Y'all have a good one now, and hook 'em. Thanks, CJ.